Hello, my friends. Welcome to another episode. Today is a can't miss episode. You have to listen to this. I'm talking to Molly Galbraith from Girls Grown Strong. This is the second time I've had her on the podcast, and it's because she's brilliant and she has a new book coming out that we talk about. But before I dive in and tell you what we cover, I also want to acknowledge that if you're watching this on YouTube or Instagram, my video feed at the start of this conversation is total crap. It's really pixelated early on, but it gets better over time. So hang in there if you're watching this video. The video quality for my picture gets better over time. But in this conversation, we talk about Molly's new book, which is called Strong Women Lift Each Other Up, which I think is coming out the week this podcast is released. So I'm so grateful to have had this conversation with her. It's so on topic and on time with her book release. So go get that book and read it. We bought one for every Unicorn Society member in Business for Unicorns, and I'm gonna have her back on a little bit later to for all of you to ask her questions. So go get that book, and you'll hear in this podcast we talk a ton about what's in there. Even though the title is about strong women lift each other up, it's also for men who work with women or know women. So men, don't turn off this podcast or turn off this video. Keep listening and watching. We talk a ton about the book. I won't give any spoilers, but I also want to say we have a conversation I think is so valuable about how to communicate with people that you know you disagree with. And Molly does such a beautiful job of breaking down how she manages that in her business and in her life, and giving some really valuable pointers. So if you're a big fan of Molly already or a big fan of Girls Gone Strong, keep listening. If you can't wait to hear about an amazing book that you should go buy, keep listening. And if you really want some wonderful tips about how to communicate with people who might disagree with you, keep on listening. This is an amazing episode. The Business for Unicorns podcast is for fitness business owners who want actionable strategies to grow their business, take amazing care of their clients, and build a life and business they truly love. I'm your host, Michael Keeler, co-founder of Mark Fisher Fitness, and through Business for Unicorns, I'm a coach and consultant to industry-leading fitness studios around the world. Let's get started. Well, hello, fitness business nerds. What's up? Welcome to another episode. Today, I'm so freaking excited because I'm having back on the podcast for a second time, Molly Galbraith. And I think it's Galbraith. Did I pronounce it wrong? I'll ask her in a second. I always ask last names, and I forgot today because I know Molly so well that I thought I would get it right. But I'm so excited to have Molly back because I've been in the fitness industry now for about 10 years. And Molly is always someone that I think of as just one of my favorite people in the industry. She always leads with integrity. She's always doing amazing work. She's always so forward thinking. She's always so accessible. And every time I have a conversation with her, whether here or whether we're on vacation on a tropical destination, which we've done before, we have such meaningful conversations. And I'm sure today's going to be no different. If I didn't say it already, she's co-founder of Girls Grown Strong. She's also author of a new book we're going to talk about called Strong Women Lift Each Other Up. We'll talk about all the ways you can get your hands on that book, which is coming out this spring. And without further ado, let's just welcome Molly to the stage. Molly, welcome.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I am grateful to be back.
Oh my gosh, it's so good to see you. It's so good to be having this chat. And your last name is Galbraith or Galbraith? I always second guess myself.
Okay, so here's the thing. I think so we're from Kentucky. So I think we pronounce it Galbraith, like the second A doesn't exist, so it's Galbraith. But I think we're just like Galbraith, you know what I mean? I think we're just like from Kentucky. So it is probably supposed to be Galbraith or Galbraith, but we say Galbraith. So
Galbraith. I'm gonna go with your family on this one and just call Galbraith. I didn't even think to. I ask every guest, but because I know you so well, I didn't even think about it beforehand. But welcome, and also I just want to start by saying thank you. Thank you for taking the time to do this. I mean, at the time of recording this, your book is about to be coming out like literally any minute. So I imagine your hands are full, and so just thank you for taking the time to have this chat today.
Oh, well, thank you. I so appreciate you having me back. And, you gave me such a warm, wonderful introduction. I feel the same about you. I feel the same about Mark. You all are people that I just have the utmost respect for in the industry. So it is an honor to be able to be on your podcast.
Oh my gosh. Well, let's dive in. And, I can't wait to talk about your book. We're going to get there. But I want to just talk at least about your last year. We just spent a minute catching up before we started recording. But, it's been a year. And with most of my guests, I feel like I have to start by talking about COVID in some way, shape, or form, because it's been the context of our lives and our work for the last year. And so I'll ask you an almost impossible question to answer, but I'm going to ask it anyway, which is, Molly, what are you learning about yourself and your work over this last year of this COVID roller coaster?
Yeah, that's a great question. So Girls Gone Strong is 100% online. Our team's remote. So we're the largest online platform providing evidence-based interdisciplinary health, fitness, nutrition information for women and professionals who work with them. So from the beginning, from the last 10 years, our entire all of our work has been online. So I feel very blessed in a lot of ways that we didn't have to go from working in person every day in an office to working remote. And so I would say that we probably had fewer challenges than most people who were learning how to, work from home, communicate online, get all the systems set up, the Slack, the Trello, all that kind of stuff. So we were very, very, very blessed. I would say that we're learning how resilient we are. Certainly, there's been so much collective grief and trauma over the last year. People losing loved ones, people losing their jobs, financial insecurity, just all kinds of difficult stuff that we've been dealing with. And because of the nature of our business, so we've got the Girls Gone Strong team. And then, all of our team members and all of their family members who they're supporting. And then we have the coaches and trainers that we work with because we certify health and fitness professionals and working with women. And so we're trying to support them as they support their clients. And then we're trying to support our clients as well. So there's been all these kind of different layers of like, how do we care for everyone and care for ourselves at the same time? So I would say mostly we've learned how blessed we are, how resilient we can be, and just what great work we can do when we bring our whole selves to work and allow for that grief and allow for those challenges and buckle down and say, okay, hey, we're better together. Like let's kind of, sink our teeth in and get this done.
Yeah. What a great lesson learned, right? We're blessed, we're resilient, and we're better together when we can bring our full selves to work. That's just such a beautiful way of thinking about this last year. And you're right, you're in a blessed position where you're mostly online already, and you're in a work environment where you feel comfortable as a leader leading in that way already, which is also a gift to you and your team that's you can lean into that vulnerability of the last year and bring it with yourself to work. But I think for our listeners and our viewers, I think it's a great takeaway is how can you recognize all the things you're grateful for? How have you proven to yourself how resilient you are? I think that's also huge. And how are you encouraging everyone to bring their full selves to work through the last year of uncertainty and trauma and all those things? So, what a great start to this podcast. I mean, we're done already. That's already great value.
Wrapped up. I was listening to a podcast yesterday with Brene Brown, and she was talking about it was her, and she was talking about how it used to be a victory if you went through the loss of a family member and no one at work knew about it because you could like put your brave face on,
Yep.
and it's like,
Yep.
oh, no one knows that, that I went through this horrible tragedy because I like armored up and, and didn't bring that to work or whatever. It's like, man, like that's just not even
Yep.
possible these days. It's for me, I consider it a victory when people can show up and, cry in a meeting and tell people what they're struggling with and ask for the support they need and ask for the time off that they need, and that their team members will step in to, pick up the slack and take over for them and check on them outside of work and ask how they're doing. Like one of our team members said the other day, I like just found out about a gift that one team member sent another team member, just completely unrelated to work and outside of, anything else that was going on. And I was like, oh, I love that we're building that camaraderie and that support among among, team members and coworkers. I think it's pretty
Yeah,
cool.
yeah. I mean, I think it's one of the things that I think these I'll sound like an old person, but that's okay. I'm older. What these newer generations have brought to the workplace, I think, is such a valuable kind of change to workplace culture. Because I grew up in a house with my grandparents, and I remember my grandfather always talking about like his work persona and then his home persona. Like it's not personal, it's just business. It's just it's the way it's got to be. And like that's just so. We've come so far from that. Not every place, right? There's still lots of work to be done here. But the fact that you and I can at least both feel like we're on teams right now and leading teams where people are encouraged to bring their full selves to work. And I think newer generations, millennials and beyond, it's not an option. They don't see themselves as having a work persona and another persona. They want to bring all of it to every meeting, to every interaction, for better or for worse. And there's some downsides to this, of course, right? Right. But I think that is the new expectation of the modern workplace, and the fact that you can do that during a pandemic when more people need more kinds of support they've ever done before is such a testament to your leadership. So I mean, bravo to you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Let's talk about your book, because I'm so freaking excited. I started to read it because you sent me a copy. I'm so grateful. I haven't finished yet, so I don't know. I wish I was finished before this conversation. It didn't happen, but let's just talk about it. It's Strong Women Lift Each Other Up. When is it actually coming out? I don't know when this podcast will come out, but probably before it's released. March?
It comes out March 9th.
Oh my gosh, so exciting. We'll try and get this podcast out right around, if not before then. Just start by talking to me. Who did you write this book for? Who's it for?
Oh, that is a great question. So obviously, as the leader of Girls Gone Strong, so I've been in health and fitness for 17 years. Girls Gone Strong has been around for 10 years, and we've got over 1 million women in our community. And over the last 10 years, we've been able to glean incredible insight from the women in our community, from our clients, from the health and fitness professionals that we work with, and we've always helped women with their kind of health, fitness, nutrition, exercise, things like that. Over time, we evolved into helping women with like body image struggles and just reclaiming autonomy and agency over their bodies and helping them see what's possible for their lives and their bodies. And so as Girls Gone Strong's kind of shifted, the insight we've been able to glean from our community has started shifting. And we realized a lot of our community members were struggling with things like jealousy, comparison, scarcity mindset, feeling like they're not good enough, feeling like there's not enough for them. And at the same time, we are also seeing, especially in the last several years, sociopolitically, we've been at such an interesting point in time in which more women want to help. They want to make an impact. They want to make a difference. They want to get involved. But I noticed 4 main things were getting in their way. So number one, they didn't know what to do. Right. So we think back to what was happening this summer with this long overdue racial justice uprising. People are seeing what's happening and they're like, I want to help, but I don't know what to do. Number two is that they feel like they're just one person. And so they can't make a big impact. Number three is that they have either been criticized for what they've done or not done, or they're afraid of being criticized because they've seen other people be criticized. So for example, go back to this summer, people were saying, educate yourself, like read these books, like dive in, learn more about what's going on. And people are like, I'm reading. And they're like, all you're doing is reading? Like, that's not helping anyone. And it's like, oh, well, I'm donating too. And it's like, that, your $20 isn't going to help me. Right. And so there's, and all of those critiques are really valid and useful, which I'll get to in a minute. But then, so they don't know what to do. They think they're just one person, so they can't do anything. They're afraid of being criticized, which people in leadership know, like, fear of criticism is real. Right. And then they have this scarcity mindset where they look around, they see that there's less opportunity available in the world for women, right? We make up 7% of Fortune 500 CEOs, 27% of Congress, 11% of heads of state globally. There are fewer women in important spaces and places where decisions are made. They look around, they feel like that's normal. And so they think that they have to compete with other women for those limited opportunities available, which leads them to compare and feel jealous and compete with other women. So it's this vicious feed forward cycle of, I want to help, I want to make a difference in the world, but I am so busy feeling like I don't measure up and like I'm competing with other women that I can't even do the work that it takes to make the change that we're here to make. So the first half of the book is about getting right with yourself. It's about, we all
Mm,
know we can't do for others, right? If we don't get things right with ourselves. So it's for women who want to overcome jealousy, comparison, body image struggles, scarcity mindset, feeling like other women are their competition, feeling like they're not good enough, scrolling through social media, feeling like, well, these people have it better than me, like women who want to overcome that so that they can work together with other women to create a better life for themselves and a better world with more opportunity for women and girls.
well said, my friend. I mean, Molly for president. What a great explanation of this book. I mean, it's so exciting, and I'm not a woman, so I can't claim to understand the perspective firsthand of all those things. But I can see from my limited perspective as a man that how valuable and needed all of those conversations are. And I'm just so excited because you are so the right person to be helping and moving this forward. I'm so excited for you. What a great explanation. Just talk to me a little bit. The core thesis seems to be here that when women lift each other up, we kind of lift everyone up. And so just talk to me a little bit about what do you hope is the impact of this book? How do you hope it changes just the minds and the actions of the people who really take this to heart and run with it?
Yeah, that's a great question. So in chapter 3 of the book, I talk about this concept of the ripple effect, right? So if I choose to lift two women up in my life, and those two women choose to lift two other women up, and those two women choose to lift two other women up, within 10 weeks, 2,046 women will have been lifted up. And so I want women to understand that it doesn't take a lot of time, it doesn't take a lot of energy, it doesn't take a lot of resources to do this work of lifting other women up. And like I said, the first half of the book is all about getting right with yourself. The second half of the book is, what do I actually do? Like, how
Mhm.
can I put this into practice today? So, chapter 7 is what we call small but mighty ways to lift women up. It was really important to me to make this accessible so that people
Mhm.
who didn't have a lot of time, didn't have a lot of money, don't necessarily have connections or platform or network or whatever, can do things that lift women up in their life right now, and then showing the power of what that looks like. And so I'll get back to some of those examples in a minute. But then as you kind of
Yeah.
move along in the book, we get to other ways to lift women up that might take a little bit more time or resources, so that people who do have access to those things, they have access to insider knowledge, a network, platform, influence, time, money, can figure out what their unique superpowers are and essentially pour gas on their lift women up fire to
Yeah.
go out and amplify their impact even more. But like an example, so one of the really simple examples is giving a woman a genuine compliment. And it's like, well, that's not like, okay, yeah, you give a woman a compliment. It's like, hey, if your coworker was amazing in her meeting today, why don't you pull her aside and say, you were incredible in that meeting. You were so confident. You were well prepared. Like, you really inspired me. Like, you did such a great job. Well, that one compliment might inspire her to ask her boss for a raise. It might inspire her to speak up and set boundaries in her life because she feels like other people recognize that she's confident and capable. That might, there are all of these different things that it might inspire her to do. Okay, so she asks her boss for a raise. She gets the raise. Other women in the office are like, "Oh, she got that raise. Like, we can do that same thing. We can step up and ask for that for ourselves too." And then it might over time close the gender pay gap in your office. If she stands up for herself in front of her daughter to someone who's being overbearing and sets boundaries, it might inspire her daughter to know that she can set boundaries for herself too. So there's just all of these incredible um, ripple effects that we can't always see in the moment from these really small actions that we take. And so throughout the book, I detail stories of women who have done these relatively small things, or seemingly normal things, and show how those have
Mhm.
rippled out over time to create immeasurable impact in their life and the lives of other women.
Yeah, that's so great, Molly. And I love that the example you gave of just giving someone a compliment and saying something new. I love that you start at that place, because as we both know, as people who, for a living, help people make change in their lives, we know that the more sustainable change is the one that comes in smaller steps over time. And the fact that you can have people start after reading this book by just doing things like giving more compliments or standing up and setting boundaries for themselves. I mean, it's so, so brilliant and so necessary. Even in some of our Business for Unicorns courses, we teach about how to give praise and how it needs to be specific and sincere, right? And how just that one little bit of praise can make such a huge difference in a workplace, in a culture, in a relationship, in in a whole business, in a whole community, in a whole family. And so bravo to you. I think that's so smart. Let's talk a little bit more about the front end of the book. So the first half is really start with people just getting right with themselves and doing that self-reflection. So just talk to me a little bit more about, what do you think that looks like? What does self-reflection look like in a way that helps people set themselves up to be able to take advantage of the second half of the book?
Yeah, absolutely. So at the end of every chapter, starting from chapter 3 all the way through chapter 10, it's 10 chapters, and then there's a conclusion. There are next step sections where, again, I
Mhm.
walk you through like the whole goal. I read so many books, and at the end, I'm like on fire and inspired. And I'm like, I have no idea what to do next. And this is not that book. I mean, this is going to hopefully become a workbook and a playbook that women can return to over and over again. There are men who are reading the book who are finding value in it, who are, thinking about how they can implement it with their daughters and, like, passing it on to women in their life who are important to them. But there are next steps at the end of every chapter. So the first couple of chapters are all about raising awareness without judgment. So we can't change anything until we become more aware of it. So chapter 3 is starting to become aware of, like, how might scarcity mindset be showing up in your life? Is it showing up in your relationship with your body, in your relationship with food? Is it showing up in thinking you can't take time off work? A lot of scarcity mindset comes like, well, I can't turn down this job, or I can't say no to this client, because if I do, then someone else is going to get that client, or I'm not going to be successful if I get a reputation as a trainer who turns down clients, right? So we think like, or if I tell this client I can't work on Sundays because it's my day off with my family, and they're really adamant about that, then, they're going to go find someone else, and they're not going to want to work with me. And then I'm going to lose out on income, and I'm going to lose my business, spiral into this whole kind of thing. Even when I was getting my hair and makeup done for my book cover photo shoot, the woman who was doing it was asking me questions about the book, and I was kind of explaining it to her, and she goes, "Oh my gosh, I feel like I have to say yes to every single job offer that comes across my table." And she goes, "Because if I don't and I recommend someone else, they're going to think that I'm unreliable, that I'm not willing to show up and be there for them when they need me, and then they're going to go with somebody else, and I'm going to lose my business essentially." And so this scarcity mindset shows up not just with nutrition, exercise, body image, things like that, but also feeling like, we can't say no, we can't take time off, other people are going to get ahead of us, opportunities are going to be taken away from us. And shows up in thinking that we're not good enough, we're not worthy enough, we don't fit the mold of what a trainer is supposed to look like. People aren't going to want to work with us because we don't have the, six pack shredded abs, or, we posted a picture of eating ice cream or pie on our social media, and, our clients are going to judge us for it or whatever. So chapters 3 and 4 are all about raising awareness of scarcity mindset, and then also the comparison trap. And so the idea of the comparison trap is, what happens when we go down the spiral of comparing ourselves to other people and feeling like we
Mhm.
never measure up. And then chapter 5 is all about retraining our brains essentially. So it's about being true to ourselves, figuring out our values, and retraining our brains to have thoughts and words and actions that are more aligned with who we want to be in the world. So I walk readers through a really extensive values discovery exercise to help them say, okay, what's most important to me in the world, so that they can just figure that out, to make sure that they're making decisions that are more aligned with their values, and also that their thoughts and words and actions align with who they want to be in the world. So that kind of starts the retraining the brain process a little bit.
Yeah, that's so exciting. And the minute you started talking about it and you mentioned, having these action steps at the end of each chapter, I just got so excited because I'm just like you, and I read books, and at the end I'm just like, I'm so excited about this, but what the heck do I do? How do I apply this? Where am I in this content? And so my favorite book these days are books like yours that actually make it interactive and engaging and allow people to actually apply what they're learning. That's why we're reading books these kinds of books in the first place, is we want to change something. So I love that you're taking people on the journey. And I also love that you mentioned that, this book is great for men too. I told you this already. We pre-ordered a bunch of books for our Unicorn Society members at Business for Unicorns, and it's like 80% men. But I was like, no, you all are getting this book anyway. One, you should read it, and then you should pass it on to a female in your life who you think would enjoy it. And I think that it's great that that you brought that up, because I think it's an important thing. I think if women are going to lift each other up, they also need allies in men who can support
Yes.
them. And somebody who's doing some of these things that are vulnerable and do take a lot of courage to do, the supportive people around them who understand what that journey might look like.
Well, and a lot of their clients are probably women, so they're gonna have a deeper understanding of women's experiences as well, so that they can better relate to them. And, things like getting clear on your values, like that's retraining your brain, curating your environment, like all of that stuff is really important for people of any gender. And then chapter 6 is all about how do we work better together? So how do we not only believe that we are better together, but what are the things that it actually takes to be better together? And one of them is overcoming self doubt, because if we are doubting ourselves or feeling imposter syndrome, we're less likely to speak up in a meeting. We're more likely to get defensive if someone gives a suggestion or gives us like criticism or constructive criticism or feedback. So it's overcoming self-doubt. It's believing in your abilities. It's believing in other women's abilities, because there's a ton of research backing up the fact that men and women both don't believe in women's abilities the same way that we
Mm,
believe in men's abilities. So I think the numbers are something like only 66% of women would feel comfortable with a female president. And I think only 59% would feel comfortable with a woman CEO, or maybe those numbers are flopped. But
sure.
literally 33 to 40% of the country, at least in the US, doesn't feel comfortable with women in leadership. And
Yeah.
it's just bananas. So we have to learn how to actually believe in women's abilities as well. We have to learn how to set boundaries. You already know boundaries was going to be in the book, because that's so important for being better together, is setting boundaries with what it's okay for people to do and not do, and what's okay in your relationships, whether they're work or personal, and then forgiving yourself and others. So I know forgiveness
Yeah.
is a tricky topic for a lot of people, but if we're gonna believe that we're better together and work in teams and come together for a greater good, a mission, which I know so many of your listeners here in Business for Unicorn folks are, like, they have a vision, right? They have a vision for a type of world that they want to see, and if they're going to work with other people to do that, people are going to
Hmm.
make mistakes. There's going
Yep.
to be things that happen that require a level of forgiving both ourselves and other people. And so there's just a lot of just overall good humaning and good, like, here's how to be a good human in the world within the book.
Yeah.
And then chapters 7 through 10 get into the really actionable stuff that you can start implementing into your everyday life.
Yeah, that's amazing. I can't wait to get to those chapters too. So tell me about this. This is related to your book, but maybe a little bit of a tangent. In that, clearly so many of my listeners are brick and mortar fitness business owners, studio owners. A good majority of them are men. And one of the things that, I don't know if this is explicit in your book, probably it's, probably not. So this is why it's a little bit of a tangent. But I'm just curious, what do you think that those male business owners, and probably this goes for females too, business owners can do to make their workplaces places where women can do all this work you're talking about? What can they do to make the context, their workplace, their culture, their environment,
Mhm.
one where women can lift each other up and thrive in all the ways you're articulating in this conversation? What can they do as leaders to set people up to succeed in this way?
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously, I think getting a copy of my book would be super, super
Great
helpful for
start. It's
them.
a great start.
Yep. But one of the things that we do at Girls Gone Strong, and it didn't make the book because it's a little bit nuanced, but I think it's so important and it's a tenet of how we work together at Girls Gone Strong, is we operate under this culture of assumed benevolence. So what that means is that in all of our interactions, I am assuming that you have my best interest at heart, and that I have your best interest at heart, and that we're just trying to do our best work together. And especially because so much of communication, right? I think only 7% of communication is actually what we say to people. And the other 93% is tone of voice and body language. And especially if you're going from, working with people in person to online, there's a lot more written communication instead of in person. We're all in kind of more high stress environments, dealing with the, kind of the macro trauma that we're experiencing, the micro trauma that we're experiencing. It's easy to get kind of snippy or be anxious. There's a lot of change going on. So I think adding a culture of assumed benevolence to your team is going to be so useful, because that way, when you send me something, Michael, and I'm like, hey, I don't really like this, I think that we should do it like this, you're not like, oh, Molly thinks I suck, I'm the worst. It's like, oh no, Molly thinks that I'm awesome and that I can do this even better. Like, she thinks that am talented and that I'm not doing my best work here and that I can take it to the next level. So when you operate with this culture of like, hey, we're constantly going to assume the best of one another. We're going to assume everyone's being generous in their intentions. We're going to assume that if we're going to assume misunderstanding over malice, right? So if somebody says something and it's like, oh, they, snapped at me, maybe they were just trying to respond to you really quickly before they went and did something. Or maybe they, sometimes my finger hits the wrong emoji button, right? And I send a mad emoji instead of a smiley face emoji or whatever the thing is. But assume misunderstanding over malice has been so huge for us in being able to feel comfortable and confident and being able to feel like our coworkers have our back. We have really clear conversations with people. So we're bringing a new team member on here in the next month, and she is new to the team but has a lot more experience than the person who's kind of running the area of the organization that she's going to be working in. So just from the very beginning, we were like, hey, listen, like to the person who's been with GGS, we're like, hey, we know she has a lot more experience than you, and that probably feels scary. It probably feels a little bit intimidating to have someone come in who's has been in the industry so much longer than you, brings a lot more experience. But we want you to know that, like, we value what you've been doing, and we think you have a lot to teach her, and we want you to be ready that she's going to have a lot to share with you and teach you, and it's going to be so cool because we're going to we're going to level each other up together. Like, you're going to have so much specific to GGS to show her, and she's going to have a lot of like industry knowledge. And then with the woman who's coming in, we're like, hey, we know you have a lot more experience than this other person who's kind of going to be running the show. Like, that might feel a little awkward at first. Like, here's what we want you to know. Like, we know you have so much, so just having these super clear conversations, and that gets rid of any type of like tension or awkwardness or weirdness from the very beginning. Notice what's going on, name what's going on, have a culture of assumed benevolence where everyone is doing their best to operate with everyone else's best interest at heart and generous in their assumptions of the interactions. And like, I think that just goes so far in creating the kind of culture where you can have radically candid conversations. I don't know if you've read Radical Candor, but you can have radically candid conversations with one another, put it out there, even go in there and like duke things out a little bit, because ultimately everyone has the best interest of each other and the organization front of the mind.
Yeah, beautifully said, Molly. And I think there's so much about that. I hope listeners and viewers, you're taking notes here. There's so many great things there. I mean, I think you're right that we call it MFF, just assuming good intent, right? Which is very similar than assume benevolence, right? Which is just assume the person coming at you really cares. And we also use the phrase, we want to treat feedback like a gift. We want to assume that when we get feedback, that the person is giving to us because they believe, like you said, that we can do better, and they're here, they want to help. It might not always be wrapped in the most beautiful package. It might not be giving to you in the way you want to receive that gift. But if you can use that framing, it goes a long way to fostering those vulnerable conversations, those candid conversations that we all know are so valuable in culture. So I think those are such great tips. I love that so much. Let's switch gears a little bit. There's one topic I want to talk about that I know is kind of a superpower for you that I don't know if it's in your book. It may be. So this may be a departure from your book or not. But I know you're so good at it. I think this skill is so valuable right now. And it's kind of related to what we were just talking about. But, before I do this podcast, I ask guests, what they think their superpowers are. And one of the superpowers you said you have is you think you're pretty good at speaking to people who don't agree with you in a way that they can hear you. And, if there's a skill I can think of that we've all learned is necessary over this last year, that's at the top of my list. There's so much disagreeing. Frankly, there's so much disagreeing to disagree. There's so much not listening to each other. In fact, you mentioned Brene Brown earlier. She just put out a podcast just last week, was it? I can't remember what it was, relatively recently, where she just kind of talked about what's on her mind. And this topic came up about how to hear each other, even through disagreement. And so this is a big topic. I don't know how far we'll be able to get into it, but just for starters, how do you think about communicating with people who disagree with you?
That is a very good question. So I want to talk about first kind of my filter for even having those conversations in the first place, right?
Yeah.
Because as leader of Girls Gone Strong, have a community, have a team, have all these students and grads we're responsible for, with the book coming out, my time is very limited, right? So whenever I'm thinking about how am I going to have these conversations, I kind of run it through this particular filter. Number one, do I have the time and energy for it? And if yes, then move to number two. Number two, can I actually make a difference in this conversation? Because making a difference is my highest value. So if having the conversation is completely futile and I don't think I can make any sort of difference, then I don't consider it to be worth my time and energy in that moment. So if I have the time and energy, and if I think I can make a difference, then I have the conversation. Now, if I don't have the time and energy, but I do think I can make a difference, then I kind of wrestle with myself and say, okay, how big of a difference can I make? And making a difference can mean a number of things, right? It can mean having some type of influence or persuasion over this particular person. It can mean just standing up for my community and my values. It can mean like setting a really firm boundary and role modeling for people in my community that I am going to stand up for them, and I'm going to stand between them and this other person who I think is being harmful to them. So it can mean a lot of different things. But if all of that stuff happens and I think that I can make a difference, then I generally will engage in the conversation. And it's interesting because I used to think that this particular part of my personality was a weakness, but now I can see that it's a strength in that I can generally see both sides of an argument or a conversation, and I can deeply understand where this other person is coming from. And so I used to think that it made me wishy-washy because I would listen to an argument and I'd be like, oh yeah, they have a lot of great points, and then I'd be like, well, but they have a lot of great points. And so I was kind of just like going back and forth, right? And I was like, oh, I'm just really wishy-washy. I'm not firm in what I believe. And I'm like, no, wait, I can actually see where both people are coming from. And so for me, trying to like really listen and understand like why this person feels this way, what it is about their lived experience that leads them to feel this way. I talk about that in chapter 2, like that our lived experience impacts everything about us. And that can be, and so the premise in the book is that there's no one right way to lift women up, because all of our lived experiences are going to impact us, give us different superpowers, give us different things that we care about. And those lived experiences are related to, gender, race, class, education, sexual orientation, and, where did we grow up? What were our parents like? Did we grow up with our grandparents in the house, or did we not? Did we finish high school? Did we finish college? And so I'm able to think like, oh, okay, I understand where this person's coming from. This is what their life experience looks like. And these are the fears and frustrations and things that they're experiencing. So I can kind of step into their thing and be like, hey, I totally hear you. When people say these words, it feels like an attack on you in this way. And that must be really hard. But, and I want to share with you a little bit more about why I think this thing means this, right? So validating their experience, telling them, it's understandable that you feel that way. Like, I get it. That makes sense to me. Like that feels very like, oh, okay. Like she understands where I'm coming from, right? And then you can kind of present the other perspective that you're like, hey, and in addition to this, I think that it would be valuable that you would learn from this thing. And so, yeah, that's been really important, like you said, over the last couple of years. I've been able to have a lot of behind the scenes conversations with influential health and fitness industry leaders. And I think make some progress in terms of helping them kind of understand why the work we're doing at Girls Gone Strong is so important, or why taking an intersectional approach to health and fitness is so important. And it's been really great. So instead of jumping in an internet pile-on, right, which is the way that a lot of people choose to express how they're feeling, I'm not even saying that that's a terrible thing. I think that
Mhm.
that's another kind of concept in the book, is that change has to be created from all these different angles, right? Top down, bottom up, outside in, inside out. Like, we need people, I think, in some instances, who are willing to say, hey, no, we're gonna call you out if you're doing this thing. Like, that's what it takes to create change in a system or organization sometimes. I just don't think that's the best use of my time, right? But you need people who are willing to march, riot, protest, all of those kinds of things, whether it's on the internet or in real life. For me, if another fitness industry professional is doing something that I think is damaging, I am more likely to make a difference having a conversation with them offline than I am jumping into the internet kind of pile-on.
Yeah, I love that so much. There's so many great takeaways in that. I think the first thing you shared is automatically useful to our listeners and viewers, which is deciding whether or not which conversations you're going to engage in, whether their matrix is like yours, whether do I have the time and can I make an impact, or there's something else. But having that kind of decision tree in your head about, is this the best use of my time, my skills, and my communication strengths? Because you're right, there's some people who might have great followings and great personality online, and being on the interwebs or on Instagram or TikTok, that might be the best place for them to make an impact and make a difference. And for others, I'm maybe more like you. I'm better in one-on-one conversation. I feel like I'm better able to empathize and listen and validate opinions and feelings in this environment than I can online. And frankly, I think everyone can do it better, like one-on-one. But I get your point, and that work needs to happen all over the place. There's not any one place that's right or wrong. But to your point, when it comes to listening and empathy and compassion and validation, I think this is the best tool. But but don't tell anyone. But I get it. Also, it has to happen everywhere. But I also love the fact that that the skills that you mention in these conversations are skills that I talk so much on this podcast about and teach in my coaching conversations course. Things like really great listening, like validating people's opinions and perspectives, like sharing the things that are great about their opinion and yours. So you're kind of yes and in this conversation. It also makes you think about, I don't know if you are a big fan of Adam Grant at all, but he just came up with a new book. Adam Grant came up with a new book called Think Again. And in his book, he actually talks about this as well. And I just shared recently, he did an interview with the New York Times opinion section, I think it's on Instagram, where he's interviewed and talks about these skills. And they're very much in line with what you just shared, in fact. And so if people want to learn more about this, not only should they read your book, but go check out Adam Grant's new book, Think Again, because it's talking about the power of knowing what you don't know and acknowledging other people's opinions and perspectives, even if you don't share them, and how useful that can be to de-escalating a conversation, building connection and trust and rapport, and having them just open a little window to maybe seeing your perspective as well, which in many cases is the first possible and smallest impact you could possibly have. It's just opening a tiny window that they maybe just don't blow off your perspective anymore.
Yeah, 100%. I've heard of him, but I haven't read his stuff. So I'm glad to hear that he's so brilliant that he agrees with the stuff that
Exactly. Yeah, he's a good one. He's a good one. So I'm going to keep talking on this topic forever, but I want to be also respectful of your time, and I know that I want to start wrapping up in a few minutes. So let's do this. I know I'll have you back maybe once your book is out and everyone's read it, and we can maybe have a Q&A session where people can bring us questions about your book, because I'm sure everyone that I know is going to read it. So let's just switch gears. Let's do our final 5 questions. We got a few minutes. Let's do our final 5 questions.
Let's do it.
These are questions just all about you and how you manage yourself in your day. They're a little geared towards kind of fitness business owners. I'm going to tweak them a little bit for you, but they still work. They're meant to be a little rapid fire, but you can also take your time and elaborate as much as you want.
Okay. Sounds good.
So question number 1. So what is one thing you love about being in the kind of fitness and wellness space?
Oh my gosh, we are the conduits to helping women or helping people create so much change in their lives. So we, as health and fitness professionals, have more time and influence with our clients than pretty much anyone else in kind of their healthcare team or sphere. And we have the opportunity to help them create such enormous change in their life and in the world. I think I don't know if other people have had this experience, but when we have clients get coached by Girls Gone Strong over a year period doing our coaching program, they come out the other side and they just want to pass on what they have learned. They want to pass on to their daughters, to their friends, to their mothers, to their coworkers, this, healthier relationship with this food, this autonomy and agency over their bodies, this, incredible, positive body image that they have. Like they've had such an amazing transformation. They want to pass it on. And I think that we just have so much power because so many people are seeking health and fitness information, and they're typically come to us when they are ready to create a change. I just think that being in health and fitness is one of the most powerful places that we can be in the whole world to help people create change, not just in their lives, but then turn around and pass that change on and create more change in the world.
Fantastic. I love that answer.
Oh,
awesome.
One more thing I'll say. So
Please.
at Girls Gone Strong, I was to say the second part of our mission statement is so we create evidence-based interdisciplinary health, fitness, nutrition, and pregnancy education for women and professionals who work with them, because we believe when women feel strong, confident, and empowered in their lives and bodies, we can change the world. So that's the thing, right? When we help women feel strong, confident, and empowered in their lives and bodies, we can change the world.
Yeah, fantastic. What a mission statement. And also, what a great example of a mission statement, right? That your mission statement is something that you want to quote on a regular basis. It means you have a good one. That's a good lesson to our listeners too. It's like if you have a mission statement that you never think of, doesn't actually resonate in any of your conversations or work day to day, you have the wrong freaking mission statement. Yeah, so fantastic. Question number 2, this is all about clients. We have to talk about, creating great client experience, over delivering for clients. So when you think back, what's one of the coolest or most memorable things you've done for a client? What's the coolest or most memorable things you've done for a client?
Ooh, that's a great question. So this was not for a client, but it was for a customer of ours. So someone, well, I guess, technically they were a client. They bought one of our training programs, but we weren't working with them one-on-one. This was back in 2015. And they bought our training program through a link of another professional. So that person had promoted our program and they bought it. And me and that professional were actually together at the moment when we saw the sale come through. So we sent the person a personalized video thanking them from both of us for being part of both of our communities and for, trusting us with their, their programming and whatever. So we sent them a joint. So literally they bought it and within 10 minutes, they had a joint video from the two of us thanking them for being part of our community.
Yeah, amazing. What a great example. What a great example of just making
one more
personal. Yeah, go for it.
One more. When I was in New Zealand a couple years ago, speaking at a conference, a woman enrolled in one of our certifications, and she happened to be living about 45 minutes from where we were staying in New Zealand in this really cool beach town. So I hand delivered her textbook and workbook and certification materials because I happen to have it with me. So I live in the States. She lives in New Zealand. She orders our certification, and then I come hand deliver it to her at her remote beach town in New Zealand.
That's amazing. And what serendipity? Just what a great opportunity to just kind of wow and over deliver. That's fantastic. Great examples. Cool. Question number 3. This is about your team. When someone in your team does this, it makes you super happy. So when someone on your team does this thing, it just really lights you up. It makes you so proud and happy. What is it?
Yeah, I would say when I watch them caring for each other outside of anything that has to do with me, that makes me so happy because it allows me to see that we've built such an incredible culture where they want to take care of one another outside of work, and that just makes me get all the warm fuzzies.
all the feels. Yeah, that's fantastic. Cool. Question number 4. This is a little about marketing. It's a little technical, but what is your most reliable strategy for generating leads? So tomorrow you have to go find new people to sell stuff to. How do you generate new leads and find kind of fresh meat for your marketing machine?
Yes, that's fantastic. So we've created a number of free 5-day courses at Girls Gone Strong. So we are incredibly passionate about access to information. And at the same time, a lot of our programs and products are priced at what would be considered more of a premium. And so we feel very passionately about creating as much free content as possible to not only allow people who don't have the financial and socioeconomic or even geographic access to high quality information about working with women, they have access to it, but it's also a really great opportunity to show people like, oh, if this is our free stuff, like, wow, what's their paid stuff going to look like? So for us, creating free 5-day courses that are in the vein of the type of products that we sell. So for example, for our pre and postnatal coaching certification, we've got 4 different free courses and they're all related to working with pre and postnatal women. So for us, those 5-day courses, and then we do a decent amount of paid advertising because the courses are so good that if someone gets into the course, not only do they get enormous value that they can implement into their coaching right away, even if they can't enroll in the certification, that it's just shows them the type of quality and the level of information that they provide if they get our paid stuff. So for us, I would say it would be our free 5-day courses and then driving paid traffic to those.
Yeah, amazing. Great answer. And I think it's so many people are afraid to give away like their best information, quality content. It's like, no, that should be cheap or free. Put the information out there, make people pay for the stuff that's really the next level, in the one-on-one attention and the coaching they get and all of that. That's where you can make people pay a premium. Yeah, that's amazing. Great answer. Last but not least here, question number 5. What is one thing, and this audience of this podcast is mainly brick and mortar facility owners. So what do you think is one thing gym owners can start to do better tomorrow? If you got to look out at the whole industry and there's one thing you wanted all gym owners to start doing better tomorrow, what would it be?
That's a great question.
Feel free to take your time. It's a big one.
Yeah, it is a big one. Well, and I'm super biased, because my answer is understand how to help women really, really well. I mean, 67 to 75% of your clients are most likely women. And if you took, not to poo-poo anything, but if you take a run-of-the-mill kind of general training certification, you miss out on not just the anatomical and physiological stuff about working with women, the pelvic health, the menstrual cycle, the menopause, things like that, but so much of the psychological and mental side, the guilt, the shame, the fact that women struggle so hard to put themselves first because they, are taking care of their families. It's difficult for them to feel like they're worthy of their own care, the extra emotional labor and unpaid domestic labor they're doing that might lead them to cancel working with you because they feel like they don't have the time for themselves. Like there's just so much stuff, body image struggles that I think health and fitness professionals are missing and could do better. And we know because then they come to us and end up working with us and they say, oh, I worked with this trainer, and he shamed me for doing this, or he made comments about my body, or he assumed that I wanted to lose weight when I went to him to increase my deadlift, right? So I know I'm a little bit biased, but it often feels like we're kind of like with these clients, we're almost like cleaning up a little bit of the mess that that happened to them and their relationship with their body and food from working with professionals who didn't know how to help them. And that's men and women too, like I've been in the industry for 17 years. Like I made so many kind of quote unquote mistakes or missed so many opportunities working with women my first probably 5-7 years, something like that, because I didn't have a deep understanding of all of these things as well. So I know I'm biased, but my answer would be learn how to work with your female clients really, really well and have a deep understanding of not just the anatomical and physiological changes that their bodies go through, but also having a deep understanding of the psychological considerations, their struggles with disordered eating within your scope of practice, of course, their struggles with body image, their struggles with guilt, shame, feeling like they're not good enough, having unrealistic expectations for what their bodies are going to look like, all of those kinds of things. I think that all fitness business owners could do that a lot better.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I love your bias. I think it's so valuable, and I think it starts with getting your book. I'll include links to the show notes down below. Everyone, no matter when it's coming out, you can pre-order as of today, and hopefully it's in your hands soon. Molly, this has been such a treat. Thank you so much for doing this. As we start to wrap things up, how do people find out you? Where can they get the book? And obviously it'll be down below, but where can they follow you as well? And what's going on with Girls Gone Strong that they can turn their attention to?
Yeah, absolutely. So the book is really simple. They go to mollygalbraith.com/book, and you can find all of the different retailers there. It's deeply discounted. Places like Amazon, Target have it for 30% off. Kindle's like 46% off. If you have the means and you want to support local, you can buy through Bookshop, which again, all the links are on this page, but you can donate some of the proceeds of the book to your local independent bookseller, which I just think is so cool. So mollygalbraith.com/book, you can find all the different US-based retailers and international retailers. And then for anything related to Girls Gone Strong, girlsgonestrong.com is kind of the hub where you'll find links to all of the free courses and the certifications. And then we have a really cool closed Facebook group for health and fitness professionals called GGS Coaching and Training Women. Totally free. Again, access to that information is really important to us. You get access to all the GGS curriculum developers. So if you're a health and fitness professional and you want to learn how to help women better, that's totally free access in that group. And then, of course, we're on Instagram at the Molly Galbraith and the Girls Gone Strong.
Amazing. Well, listeners and viewers, there's no reason why, if you're a health and fitness professional, you shouldn't go join that Facebook group literally immediately. Please go put down this podcast or this YouTube that you're watching, this Instagram, IGTV, and just go do that. I mean, it's free, and it's clearly a way that you can make your business better. You can level up you and your team, and just serve women in a way that's going to be better for everyone. And so, Molly, thank you for this great podcast. Thanks for this great conversation. I'm sure I'll have you back again once the book has been out for a while. We can talk more about the impact it's having and what you're learning from having it in everyone's hands. So thank you for your time.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for caring about important topics. Thank you for asking great questions, and for just you and Mark being incredible examples of leaders in the health and fitness industry who are using your superpowers for good, who are lifting other people up and just creating a better and more benevolent and more helpful health and fitness industry for all of us.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, my friend. We'll talk again soon. Hey friends, before you go, just one more thing. If you enjoy this podcast, you get value out of it, you enjoy listening, please share this podcast, comment below. If you're watching on YouTube, subscribe. Please share it with friends and family. We don't spend any money on marketing or advertising. And so the only way people find out about this podcast is from you. So please do everything you can to share it with friends and fellow colleagues in the fitness industry. We love making it, and we want to keep doing it for a long, long time. So I appreciate your support. Go have a kick-ass day. Bye.